for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC, and of course I am your host, Nico House. So there has been a lot of worry, a lot of rumors and things like that going on. But before I get into all that, I do have to apologize. I actually misreported yesterday, and it was my mistake. So I forgot that there were 3 events. I knew that there were 3 events, but the reason I forgot that there were 3 events is because I usually don't count the breakfasts and the lunches as events. I know that might sound weird, and I'm going to explain to you why I didn't think that, and actually has a lot to do with what we're going to be discussing today. So I misreported and thought that the Fox Business article was referring to the meeting with the doctor at his penthouse in New York, which was obviously an open invitation. But that actually was not it. It was the meeting with, I think his name is O'Meal. Don't get it. Look, y'all know I'm bad with names. Omid. I want Omid Malik. It was with Omid Malik, and the event, I believe, is actually happening this morning, if it has not already happened. And so that's my fault. My bad. I totally misreported that, and it was because I literally just don't think of these breakfasts as like events. I didn't think that would be like worth Fox Business reporting, but yet here we are. So apparently that was the meeting that they were talking about. Now, my question at that point is, why are we giving this any credence? Well, because Fox Business portrayed the meeting as if it was some nefarious goings on that Tulsi was trying to hide from everybody, and he kept using this particular buzzword because he knew it would get people riled up. He kept saying, meeting with Wall Street. She's meeting with a bunch of Wall Street executives. Wall Street. And that sounds super nefarious. It sounds super duper nefarious. If you say Wall Street enough, then in my opinion, so for example, when we talked about Wall Street and Hillary Clinton, it was in the context of what? Her meeting with Goldman and Sachs, having a secret meeting, giving a secret speech that she refused to release the transcripts for. And then when we got the transcripts, we found out she got a public and a private position. Oh, and then on top of that, they were donating to her in the millions, to the tune of millions of dollars. That's what I would call a Wall Street fundraiser. On top of that, you all are aware how it goes. You get about $1,000 to $2,000 a plate just to be able to show up. It damn sure doesn't get promoted on Facebook. If at all, it doesn't get promoted because only certain people are allowed. And so when you say Wall Street in that context, I think people kind of get it. The other times we use Wall Street is when a corporation is using its influence to basically usurp fundraising laws by hounding and hemorrhaging money from a corporation in any particular way into a super PAC to benefit a particular candidate. I'm going to tell you right now, literally none of those things are what we're dealing with right now. What we are actually dealing with, it's something that Tulsi has done often that a lot of people are unaware of. This is not a private fundraiser, just in case anybody's curious. It's perfectly open to the press, and this format specifically is a format that Tulsi has used time and time again. Now, how do I know this? You can keep listening to everybody else's word of mouth about what they think is happening, but I'm telling you this because I've been to one. And just because someone uses a name or uses a buzzword like Wall Street does not mean that you should automatically give credence to anything that they are saying, especially when it's coming from Fox Business, especially like I said yesterday when I covered the original story, when they are going out of their way to make Tulsi the focal point of the article, but the only ones they had any like legitimate details about was Pete Buttigieg. But yet she was the focus point of the article. They used her picture in the center. The first paragraph was about her. And yet they couldn't even really provide the original source of the invitation. But once I realized who this invitation was from, then I figured I was able to put two and two together and was like, oh, that's how they got the invitation, because of how the invitation came to be. Now, before I go into the video, I want to give context first. And I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. The context is every millionaire is not every other millionaire. Every banker is not every other banker. Every journalist isn't every other journalist. Every activist isn't every other activist. What do I mean by that? By trying to associate this particular person holding a breakfast for Tulsi, hoping his friends will help donate to her, by associating him with Wall Street automatically, it actually would be a lie. This particular person has a beef, an open and public beef with Wall Street bankers, with Bank of America specifically. Okay? Omid actually won a discrimination case. But also, millionaires in general are not a monolith, people. One, that's the biggest thing. Every millionaire is not your enemy, just like every activist isn't your friend. I've seen a plethora of anti-war millionaires, because you're thinking the same millions and, maybe 10, 20 million that they have, maybe even less than that at times, is equal to a Goldman Sachs type of multi-hundreds of millions of millionaires or a billionaire. You're assuming that just because a person has a bank, there are plenty of credit unions around the country. There are a lot of credit unions around the country. You think all of them operate like Goldman Sachs? No. There are a lot of investment bankers that are large. This particular banker, this person who set it up, not the bank, the person who set this up owns a boutique bank. And as a matter of fact, I'll go to the description of his bank. So he's by the way, he's Iranian, and he is the CEO of Farvahar Partners. And it's a boutique merchant bank that invests partner capital in early stage businesses and alternative investment funds. Prior to founding Farvahar Partners, Malik was a managing director at Head Global Capital Strategy and the head of America's prime brokerage origination at Bank of America Merrill Lynch until his termination in January 2018, in which he underwent a lawsuit. It was a discrimination lawsuit, and basically they were trying to get him fired. And they were throwing allegations at him. The allegations were unfounded. They were holding information that could have proven his innocence. He sued them over it, and they just gave him $100 million. He then obviously became a part of this boutique bank. Now, if those of you who are not familiar with boutique banks work very similar to boutique clothing stores. Just because they are a clothing store does not mean that they are Macy's. Does that make sense? Now, I want to be very clear about something. Like I said, given that they were trying to get him fired, and they tried to lob allegations against him, and he won a defamation case and a discrimination case, it's probably because he was going to release some information that they probably didn't like, to be honest with you. Which is why instead of going to another large bank, he went to a smaller bank. He went to a smaller bank. I am Ali. I'm going to do a video about that a little bit later today. Thanks for the super chat. So I want to be clear about that. On top of that, there are some millionaires out there who, when given the opportunity, want to do the right thing. And like I said, I want to be very clear about that. I don't like the conflation. I want to give you an example of this that I've been personally involved in. So, this is me speaking at an event full of CEOs at a private club. Now, a friend and a mentor of mine actually invited me because, well, my experiences, this event was literally an event to get a bunch of CEOs to not only donate to a program, to train ex-felons, to train ex-cons, give them and make them more hireable and employable after they get out of prison. But even more so, this particular gentleman actually was the first person to start this program, or to engage in this program, use his business to hire an ex-con that after 10 years now runs all the warehouses for his business around the country. At this event, I was actually asked to speak on the experiences of growing up in an impoverished area. And then, the only reason that I ended up in a lot different of a situation than a lot of my friends who grew up in the same exact neighborhood under very similar circumstances is because someone with clout, with a network, and with the understanding of how this world works, took me to the side and separated me and cultivated me into being the person I am today. And that was why I was invited to speak, so that CEOs who do not understand what it is like to grow up in a very limited, a situation with limited circumstance, limited circumstances, limited resources, they didn't know. You can talk about it all day, but between each other, they can look at the studies, but it's a different thing to have someone who is actually saved by someone investing in him, investing just literally their time in him, which would be me. And so that's where I spoke at. I spoke at an event full of millionaires, and guess what those millionaires did? They're working with they introduced legislation, one, to get rid of mandatory minimums. That's another thing that this particular group does. Full of Republicans and Democrats, by the way. And then the sheriff in this same event, which was weird, still never heard anything like it. The sheriff in the same event said it's his job to put himself out of business because he wants to see the jails in Massachusetts completely empty. And he wants to see everybody in those jails have jobs and equitable opportunity. So this is an example. This is an example of why it's important to understand that just because someone is a millionaire, like I said, my close friend and mentor is a CEO of an unemployment risk management firm. Guess where much of her money goes to? She tries her hardest to invest into independent journalism. She tries her hardest she spends most of her time waking other CEOs up. That's what she tries to do, because guess what? Do you think that this man would be Omid? Oh, good God Almighty. Y'all, I'm bad with names. Omid, I said it right the first time. You think Omid is protected as a boutique banker when the stock market crashes? So do you think he has a vested interest in someone coming in who wants to play fair? I'd imagine he probably does. Now, once again, I think there's also the issue of the people just have no idea how this thing works with Tulsi, right? So, like I was saying, I went to an event with Tulsi Gabbard. That was an open event, by the way, because the press is always invited, because Tulsi literally says the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It was hosted by a man named Apo Jabarian, who is the founder of Armenian Life magazine, and is also a member of the Screenwriters Guild in Hollywood. Okay? This dude is not small pennies, and neither were the people that were invited. However, it was not a situation where people had to pay a certain amount per plate, nor has Tulsi Gabbard ever done that. Literally ever. She's never done that. It was a lunch. The lunch was, by the way, absolutely scrumptious, because I ordered what I wanted to because I had to pay for it. And I paid the restaurant. I didn't pay Mr. Apo Jabarian. And even though Apo Jabarian does pretty well for himself, and he is the creator of Armenian Life magazine, And he even has his own television channel, if I recall, or at least his own television show that he's the host of. Guess what Oppo did? I interviewed with him, and he was like, this is kind of important. I don't think there's really anything else that matters outside of the anti-war movement. Imperialism is a problem. He talked about how he was duped by Obama and how, it's just American imperialism needs to be reined in because everybody is hurting. And so when Tulsi finished her speech, it was then when Apo Jabarian asked, hey, I know that I'm going to give X amount of dollars. I would ask you all to do the same thing. If you believe in the message that she has presented today, I would ask you all to do the same thing. Did everybody donate to her? No. Did a lot of people donate to her? Yeah. Do they all have the same jobs? No. Were they all millionaires? No. Were a couple of them? Probably. I hope so. But my point is, there are situations where Tulsi goes into a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, and maybe one or two people will donate. So the question is, well, how do we know that Tulsi is planning on being honest? Right? Well, she's already spoken in front of this guy before. And she's spoken in front of this particular gentleman where the stakes were much higher. She could have won a lot more money. And ironically enough, this particular situation should have been scrutinized more than a breakfast. Because this is what I'm about to show you. This is an entire conference full of people who probably like Trump more than they should. And outside of Omid, probably are closer to the large banks as a little bit more than they should be. They're a little bit closer than they should be. But Tulsi went into this Lions Den, and nobody had anything to say about it. So let's find out what she said. I don't know. It could be anybody's guess, but let's find out.
But the cornerstone of your campaign is foreign policy. And you are trying to map out a third way in foreign policy. Talk to us a little about that.
Well, I think let's define third way, just to set the baseline that this third way is not about putting one political party over the interests of the people or another political party over the interests of the people. The third way, which should be the main way, which is actually putting the interests of the American people and our country first. A little bit of background about me. I'm a soldier in the Army National Guard. I've served for over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East. My first deployment was to Iraq in 2005, where I served in a medical unit and saw firsthand every day the high human cost of war. I've been serving in Congress now since 2012 for over 6 years on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs committees, and have obviously been working very intimately on issues related to national security and our foreign policy, and seeing how our decades-long foreign policy of regime change, wasting trillions of taxpayer dollars on these regime change wars that are counter to the interests of the United States. They are counter to the interests of the American people. They undermine our national security. And they're counter to the interests of the people in the countries where we wage these wars, who end up with more suffering, more death, more destruction as a result. We find ourselves now in a place where we are in a new Cold War, ever increasing tensions between the United States and nuclear armed countries like Russia and China, a nuclear arms race, and all of this bringing us back to this point where this is making us less safe as a country. It's undermining our national security, and it's undermining our people.
But the cornerstone of your campaign is foreign policy. And you are trying to map out a third way in foreign policy. Talk to us.
Now, y'all, is it me? Or is Tulsi the most diabolical politician out there? I mean, what better way to clearly court Wall Street and the big banks by telling them the exact same message you told to the progressives the day before and the exact same message you told to Fox News the day before that, and the exact same message you told on Joe Rogan the week before that, and the same message you told on the MCSC network the week before that, and the same message you told on TYT the week before that. She is so diabolical that she's realized that ideological consistency is the best way to fundraise. And if I go into the Trump world, then everybody will know that I've been pretending to be progressive and have the exact same message this entire time so that I could eventually sell out to Wall Street by saying the progressive message that I've been saying this entire time. I don't think that's how it works. I think that probably, I could be wrong about this, that maybe Tulsi has the exact same message every single time, and that this is literally another example of a consistent pattern of behavior and her living up to the values that she speaks about every day. What does Tulsi always say? I would be willing to meet with allies and adversaries, people I consider friends or foes, because I am willing to do whatever I have to and meet with whoever I have to give peace a chance first and to give people a chance first. How in the hell is this any different than any situation she's been in? How is this different from Bernie going on Fox News, knowing what that audience is? Exactly. I'm just out of curiosity. If anything, going to a SALT conference could hurt her because how much more scrutinized she is than any other progressive. And it's crazy to me because, don't get me wrong, it wasn't I don't think it was as many people as it could have been. I want to be clear about that. But it's crazy to me how, once again, when Bernie went on Fox News, it was automatically celebrated by the progressive wing. And it should have been, because we need to be reaching everybody we can. Okay? Everybody we can. Everybody we can. But when Tulsi goes to this particular conference, or is saying very openly, because she said it on Twitter this morning, yeah, I'm going to meet with who I have to. But you can be there. It's open to the press. You can record every single minute of my conversations. I'm going to say the same exact thing every single time. Now, some of you may curious. Some of you may be curious. Some of you may be curious. Well, that's different though, because maybe the banks and the bankers and the Wall Street people, maybe they don't care about war. But what did she say anything that could potentially hinder the big banks or quote unquote Wall Street at this SALT conference? Well, got an answer for you on that one, people. Let's take a listen. What did she say?
This audience, Dodd-Frank, that was passed after the financial crisis. And it had somewhat of the ironic effect of making the big banks bigger. Mm-hmm. Do you support Dodd-Frank, or do you think we should have a reintroduction of the Glass-Steagall Act?
Look, I think Dodd-Frank had some reforms that were necessary in it, but I think it further entrenched the status quo that largely led us to the crash that devastated our economy and devastated our families. I have and continue to strongly support reinstating Glass-Steagall so that we provide that separation there, and that we not allow these big banks that are even bigger now than before, when they were too big to fail, to continue to gamble with our lives.
Hold on. So what you're telling me is Tulsi went in front of, like, this isn't a damn breakfast. This is these people specifically outside of Omid this is Wall Street. Weirdly enough, this wasn't the story that got traction But you know why this story didn't get traction? Because Fox Business could have easily used this story, easily tried to smear her with the SALT conference, given the crowd that's there. But here's a problem with that. It wouldn't have been that easy, right? Because the transcripts were released and the video was released. And if you talk about, and it's crazy that if you notice, even though I'm sure because this is Fox Business, the details of how Omid met Tulsi would have been made available to them. The context behind how this meeting got set up to begin with, or this breakfast got set up, would have been made available to them. But of course, they like to leave information out. The moment that a bunch of information gets left out, everyone else should be skeptical. Because like I said, this should have been mentioned in the Fox News article. These are important details about how this invitation came to be. Now, Cheryl Tyler, thanks for the super chat. Where is all the scrutiny over faux news for saying that she's going to be taking corporate money in the general? I know, isn't that crazy? And Anna had the nerve to talk about Tulsi having a breakfast. Elizabeth Warren trying to have breakfast with all of the military industrial complex and all of the actual Wall Street bankers. But like I was saying, it's interesting to me that they didn't mention this conference. And I guarantee you it's because the transcripts were available. Their argument and their insinuations would have fallen flat on their face, because I'm not sure how courting Wall Street looks like, but does saying I went to reintroduce Glass-Steagall, do you think that is courting Wall Street? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Here's once again. And one thing that, and this is something that I preach, Lee Stranahan, a Republican, came onto my channel, preached the same thing. Pasta, Fiorella, same thing. Another good friend of mine, Terry Baines, he comes onto the channel often. I need to have him back on soon. Says the same thing. There are some issues that transcend money, that transcend partisan ideology. War is one of those issues. So my question to you is, we understand that Omid Malik is Iranian. Not only that, he's half Pakistani as well. We have been rapidly increasing tensions with both Iran and Pakistan. For him personally, this is a huge issue because Pakistan and Iran don't really like each other all that much. And the United States has played to that for personal gain. So, do you think Omid Malik was thought like, wow, this woman, I have to have her speaking. I have to try to raise some money for her. I have to put her in front of other people so she can hear this message. Do you think it was because she said she was going to reinstate Glass-Steagall? Probably not. Even though, if you heard his statement, he was very clear about his unhappiness with the fact that Dodd-Frank made the banks even bigger. But even still, maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe it's the fact that he, as an Iranian, understands that all the money in the world means nothing if his family, if his relatives, if his parents' culture can be blown into oblivion. Maybe that's why he invited her. After moderating that event, maybe because once again, the storyline, the narrative isn't adding up with the facts. You're telling me after moderating this event, after Tulsi spreading her message, Fox News doesn't write about that part. Omid invites her to this breakfast after hearing her anti-war, anti-big bank, pro-people, pro-peace message. Invites her to this breakfast. Once again, that is not out of the norm for her to have people with networking ability to invite her to a breakfast, to a lunch, or to a dinner. But like I said, she doesn't always leave with a bunch of money. Most of the time she doesn't, or else she would have way more money in her campaign. But knowing what that message is, saying that he's going to bring her in front of other people so they can hear her message. What you think all of a sudden she's about to change that message? Come on, people. I feel like this is common sense. And I know that most of you all knew what was up from the beginning. Most of you all knew what was up from the beginning. Tulsi is, if anything, y'all, if anything, Tulsi is she's not really hard-headed. She's very like, what's the word I'm looking for? She has a lot of conviction, right? She has a lot of conviction, which is a great thing. But she's malleable. But most of all, she's consistent. She said she would meet with those willing to listen no matter what. A principle, by the way, that I have always agreed with. A principle, by the way, that Bernie has always agreed with. A principle that Nina has agreed with. A principle that Jill Stein has agreed with. And I guarantee that if we go to her FEC filings, think about it, people. Do y'all think that she was bundling? Do you think that she's been bundling? Honestly, you really think that? Do you really believe that she's been bundling? And if you believe that, I want you to smack yourself in the back of the head and ask yourself, wouldn't CNN and MSNBC and Fox News have been all over that already if Tulsi Gabbard had been caught bundling? But yet in that Fox Business article, nothing. Maybe, just maybe, I know it's hard to accept, man. I know it is. But maybe Tulsi is as good as we think she is. I just showed you the video. Maybe Tulsi says the same thing in front of Assad as she says in front of the opposition. Maybe she says the same thing in front of Bernie Sanders that she said in front of Donald Trump, which caused Donald Trump to pull the CIA out of Syria the first time before his administration made sure that she was never able to get another audience with him again. Maybe, just maybe, she says the same thing in front of independent journalists, which we know she does, when she said that Assad should be free, that she says in front of MSNBC when she's had the same message. Maybe she says the same thing on Fox News that she says on CNN. Maybe she says the same thing in front of a crowd at a coffee shop that she says at a rally, that she says at the California Democratic Convention. Maybe, just maybe, Tulsi is exactly who she says she is. Y'all, if anybody has been part of the channel for long, you know one thing. I am obsessed with patterns. I'm obsessed with pattern of behavior. Tulsi's patterns have been consistent. More consistent than I had even realized. Even going back to that what's that shit? The bureau, the Consumer Protection Bureau. Even then, when I would have thought I would have codified her as a neoliberal at that point, back in the day, early 2015, I was wrong. I would have, like, if you go back and look at the things that she was doing then, She was still advocating for climate change. She was still advocating for $15 minimum wage. She was still pushing for Medicare for all. And with the Consumer Protection Bureau thing in 2015? Yeah, the first time was 2015. She was saying, I demand transparency, and we all should be demanding transparency and have the people involved in this decision making. Like, she has been as consistent as, damn near more consistent than anybody else in this race. And I will say, for the most part, people took a huge step back and were like, I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this narrative because it was just way too convenient. And as you can see that I've pointed out, they are cherry picking information. Because Fox News, like I said, likely got their information about this invitation by someone involved in the SALT conference and with OMID. But once again, notice he didn't have a link to that invitation. Because if you would have got a link to that invitation, guess what you probably would have saw? Tulsi doesn't take any super PAC money. Tulsi is an anti-war candidate. Tulsi is for the people. She's pro-peace, doesn't take PAC money, only takes individual donations. But hey, Wall Street, come on down and try to change your mind. That's clearly what this particular person's goal was. You know, Bernie went into the lion's den when he went on Fox News. Bernie changed a lot of hearts and minds when he went on Fox News. I've watched, when Tulsi goes on her Fox News interviews, I see her change a lot of hearts and minds. I've seen it happen in person where she changes hearts and minds. And if anyone has the right to get the benefit of the doubt at this point, I think it's Tulsi. You can't get it right on Assange, get it right on Manning, get it right on Snowden, get it right on Russiagate, get it right on Syria, get it right on Iran, getting it right on Israel, and that's something she's evolved to getting it right on, by the way. That's only within the last 2 years that she's gotten it right. Gotten it right on Saudi Arabia, gotten it right on Trump without suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Has gotten it right by calling out the Democrats, but gets it as equally right calling out the Republicans while staying on message the entire time. Calls out America funding terrorism. Says she wants to reinstate Glass-Steagall. I mean, the list got it right with the Consumer Protection Bureau, demanding transparency. If you're going to try and force regulations on people, there needs to be transparency, especially when those regulations would only affect third-party people and not the big banks, which I believe was by design at the time. I'm sure she believed the same. When you've been that consistent, just think of how stupid it would be for you to say, I've been this consistent and built up this much credibility that I'm going to throw, and Venezuela, my bad, I forgot. And then I'm going to throw it all away to court 10 Wall Street bankers and get them to bundle me money. Really? Come the fuck on. That doesn't make any damn sense. She literally went on Twitter. She was like, I guess the media is upset because I'm meeting with any and everybody who cares about being anti-war. And like I said, I imagine Omid Malik, especially after being part of a discrimination case. Thanks, Natalie Chavez. Preach it. I'm trying. Jesus. But this Omid Malik dude is Iranian and Pakistani. Who do you think cares more about being anti-war than the man who is witnessing a president trying to launch a war against both of his countries. And it's crazy because at first Tulsi was anti-Muslim. She was Islamophobic. And now Muslims invite her to a breakfast, not on the pretext of being a Muslim, not on the pretext of being a Wall Street banker, but on the pretext of, I don't want to see my homes destroyed. And I think a lot of people feel like this. Then all of a sudden, it's not about being Islamophobic anymore. It's about being pro Wall Street. People have not gotten this yet. Listen, when Fox News covered Bernie being a millionaire, what were they trying to do? They were trying to insinuate that Bernie is a hypocrite. And that if you like Bernie, that makes you a hypocrite. And you notice how they didn't give any context, right? We talked about that even with the Bernie situation. At times, they were almost straight up lying. He has 3 houses and 2 cars and blah, blah, blah. Bernie got a book deal, and Bernie deserved a book deal. He should have gotten a book deal a long time ago. Bernie didn't become a millionaire until he was 76-ish years old. And that's mostly, to my understanding, in assets. Bernie at one point did have 3 houses. One of the houses, or at least 3 domiciles. He had one townhouse, I believe, in D.C., a house in Vermont, and then they bought another house on the beach, I want to say it was. One of the houses he inherited. He sold it to get the other house. It was all misinformation, conveniently, points that were conveniently left out, because that's what Fox does. If you have not realized the game yet from the neoconservative right, from the Fox News, from the Ben Shapiro's of the world, that is the game. Make the Bernie Sanders audience, make the Tulsi Gabbard audience, the people where we can't attack them on merit. We can't attack them on credibility. We damn sure can't attack them on policies. We can't attack them on being anti-war. So we got to make them look like hypocrites. But you know what would have been hypocritical and could have been a major story? If Tulsi sits in front of this SALT conference and spreads that message, Omid Malik, being a Muslim, invites her to this conference, she denies. Now she will say she could say I deny because he's a banker, which that would be a problem in my opinion. I don't think that that's okay. I think that there are different banks, just like I said, we have credit unions, just like there are different clothing stores, small and large, just like there are different online shops. So that would be wrong. But how do you think the story would have gotten twisted if she goes to speak to all these bankers and then tells Omid specifically, no, I'm not going to speak in front of your crowd? It would be flipped that, she's anti-Muslim. She does have a problem with Muslims. That's what they would say. So, if you have a problem with her consistency, that's an issue on it. I can't really help you with that. But I will never really ever care if Tulsi's, I don't give a damn if the devil came out the earth tomorrow. Tulsi doesn't want the rapture to start. And so Tulsi like, hey, devil, come here real quick. Let me talk to you. Sit down with me. Have you ever tried yoga to manage your anger issues? I think that if we talked about this after a quick yoga sesh and some slutty vegan food, we don't have to get the healthy stuff. We can get some slutty vegan food, and just had a one-on-one. I think that we could talk this out. You don't have to start the rapture. You can go back to your home. I'll talk with Jesus to see if we can reach an agreement, and we'll all move on with our lives in peace. I don't give a damn if she want to talk to the devil. If she wants to promote peace, then so damn be it. That is the problem with this country in particular. We have fetishized punishing. We have demonized conversation, open conversation. And that, by the way, is on both sides. Like Elizabeth Warren, I don't want to go on Fox News. That's a lie. We demonize conversation because the people who do not have the capacity to reach a middle ground, or are only trying to use conversations, public conversations, I should say, to further their own careers, those people will say, I don't want to talk to them, as an excuse. I've debated people that I know for a fact have no good intentions. But have I ever not accepted a debate? I'm going to be debating Abby Martin, who is the co-host of Media Roots with his sister Abby Martin. On Monday, I'm debating him about his concerns with Tulsi Gabbard's record. Robbie I would consider Robbie a really good colleague and an acquaintance, and we've chatted on multiple times. A lot of the times we agree. Sometimes, very few and far between, we don't. This is one of those situations where we disagree, and I have him on, and he's part of the left. I told Kyle that I didn't necessarily agree with any major media conglomerate being behind a major party because it leaves room for bias whenever I had him on the show discussing the Justice Democrats. And guess what? He talked about on the show how he shared some of his concerns as well, and we found a middle ground. That's how it happens. I talked about things he didn't know. He talked about things that I knew, or I didn't know, excuse me, and we learned new things together. I'm debating Robbie Martin, not Abby Martin, people. Abby loves Tulsi. Abby loves Tulsi. Giovanna Olivia, Abby's my girl crush. Abby is everyone's girl's crush. If you met her in person, you would actually probably fall in love with her because just her personality. I mean, everybody who meets her, young, old, male, female, dog, cat, she has one of those personalities where she's like so intense, but like she's actually she's not as intense as you would think she is on a regular basis. But like this is her life. Like Abby, this is what she does all day, every day, nothing else. And that she's an amazing person. Robbie is a good dude too. Robbie has been pretty consistently working with Abby for quite some time, and that entire family, including Mike, her fiance, they do fantastic work. And so I'm really excited to engage with Robbie over this because I'm going to learn something new, I'm sure. Robbie's going to learn something new. Hopefully Tulsi and her people are listening because they are likely going to be legitimate critiques. You get what I'm saying? So like, but how else do you have those conversations and learn from each other unless you're willing to discuss and talk to people who disagree with you at the end of the day? So with that being said, people, I want to go ahead and finish up this segment. Thank you all for tuning in. It ran a little bit longer than possible, but I think it needed to be this long. We need to have this conversation. And I hope that you all share this video because other people need to have this conversation. The stories the narratives are inconsistent. The narratives are convenient. The only thing in this entire scenario that is consistent, by the way, as usual, say what you want to. Oh, Nico, you just back up Tulsi too much. Real quick. Do y'all have that same energy whenever people are defending Bernie and AOC, literally no matter what? Do y'all say that like David Dole has a crush on Tulsi? Or excuse me, on AOC? Or like that X person you're always going to defend Bernie no matter what. You need to hold him accountable. Do y'all have that same energy? I don't think so. Yeah, it's because Tulsi is in her own lane. And every time you thought you got her with a gotcha, you thought you got her. You found out that you fell victim to another smear attempt. The same smear attempts that neoliberals and neocons used to fall for about Bernie Sanders. Sorry. There is not going to be a gotcha moment with Tulsi. There isn't. Y'all thought y'all gotcha with her with torture. Yeah, check her record. Because she was responding to a report that she hadn't even seen yet, where she says, "Oh, I'm conflicted. I haven't seen it. Thought you got it with drones till you found out Bernie said the same thing. Then it's different. It's different. Thought you got it with Islamophobia until you found out half of her damn campaign is being ran by Muslims who love her. And the fact that she's the only one who's been as dedicated to calling out the nonsense about Ilhan Omar, the main one, the only candidate, while everybody else left her hanging with homophobic, Hindu-phobic rhetoric against her. Thought y'all got her with the LGBTQ community. You realize that all of y'all were homophobic until like 6 years ago. 1, 2, still haven't really pointed out any comments that Tulsi Gabbard supposedly said. And 3, 100% voting record, and now the LGBTQ community is going to be a protected class. Yeah, you're damn right. I'm going to keep defending her. And, well, not necessarily her. I'm going to keep defending her mission. And until y'all get a real gotcha, I'm going to keep continuing to trivialize these pathetic attempts to smear Tulsi. Because, well, I continue to trivialize the pathetic attempts to smear Bernie in the exact same way. And that won't change about either of them. When Tulsi got something legitimately wrong, like when she accidentally said that Assad and Maduro were brutal dictators, which she did say on The View, she immediately corrected it. But before that, I did a 20-minute video critiquing her about it. A long video. And it won't no like little video either. It was full of details. No. Hey. So yeah. Nico, you're defending Tulsi. You're damn right, because guess what? Somebody has to. If nobody wants to act reasonable, if nobody understands what it's like to have been in a political campaign before, if nobody understands what it's like to be on the outside being constantly and consistently smeared, if nobody's been close to a campaign that has been witness to this. For example, I was part of Jill Stein's campaign as well. She was being called anti-vaxxer, which wasn't true. She was being called a Putin puppet, a Russian asset. She was being called a spoiler. Bernie was being called a communist. I've been there. I know what convenient smears look like. And I know that 90% of the time, 99% of the time, they have reasonable explanations. But when people have their own confirmation bias, that they eventually project onto the world, they're like, oh, this looks bad for Tulsi. This looks bad. Now, I'm not saying you can't say it looks bad. But at the same time, whenever an article like this comes out against Bernie, it is immediately just stupid. Nobody believes this. This is ridiculous. I'm not even reading this bullshit because the headline is frivolous enough. Isn't that what we said? Isn't that what we said? But when it's Tulsi, oh, I hope this isn't true. I hope that. Damn it, has it been true every other time, people? Has it been true any other time? Oh, Tulsi, man, she said some stuff when she was 21. I hope she doesn't feel that way. Look it up yourself and find out. Nope. No, 100% voting record. Oh, somebody said that Anna Kasparian said that Tulsi Gabbard supported the Hyde Amendment, which, by the way, not really sure I agree that the Hyde Amendment is necessarily a bad thing, because even though I am firmly for the federal government providing facilities to ensure that women can get their bodies taken care of, I'm not exactly sure that I support the federal government specifically diverting funds to paying for abortions for consensual sex. I'm not really sure I agree with that. I think that's actually a step too far. That's like kind of like overreach. That's kind of how I feel about that, by the way. So even if she did vote for that, I'm not sure I would disagree with that. Federal funding for abortion is not the same thing as federal funding for a Planned Parenthood. That's two different things. So with that being said, but they try to say that she voted against the Hyde Amendment, for the Hyde Amendment, that she supported the Hyde Amendment, And that was a verifiable lie that took 2 minutes to debunk it. Anna was pretending like she was for the Hyde Amendment because she was trying to liken Tulsi to Biden, even though the information was readily available. Takiel, you said Bernie and Tulsi are in two different situations, 50 years of working for change versus 16. Yeah, they are in two different situations. And guess what? Tulsi, in the prime of her career, here's the two situations. Because I like the 50 years versus 16, or 40 years, really specifically, versus the 16 years. I get all that. That's a great argument. I have a counter argument for you. Bernie has literally, up until 2016, never even thought of imagining himself as a president. Because he would have never gotten the support. In 2008, he would have been treated like Mike Gravel was. And Mike Gravel was actually a senator at some point. Like a Democratic senator at some point. Bernie Sanders had never been propped up. Bernie Sanders had never spoken to the Democratic National Convention. Bernie Sanders never had the presidency almost handed to him on a silver platter. Bernie Sanders was never the vice chairperson of the DNC. And because of all that, Bernie Sanders was never put into... Okay, so I lied. And we're going to get to that. Bernie Sanders did not, when everything was on the line, everything that she had worked for, career-wise, she had that choice. Thanks for the super chat, Ray. She had the choice to pursue her career or do the right thing. And let's be very, very, very clear about something. I have all the love in the world for Bernie. But when Tulsi was put in that camera and asked about the Clintons, she said one thing. When Bernie was put in front of that camera, he said a different thing. When Tulsi was put in front of that camera, she said, the Clintons don't scare me. Bernie said, I'll do everything I can to see Hillary Clinton elected. So 50 years didn't help him figure out that maybe that's not the best way to go about this. 50 years didn't help him figure out that, hey, I'm probably going to be attacked anyway. 50 years didn't give him the discernment to understand that speaking out on Assange could be even still life or death. If he would have did it at the right time, it would have gotten way more positive coverage from the left and been pushed more often and been made a story more often. 50 years has not led him to speak out fervently for Chelsea Manning as well. 50 years didn't give him the clairvoyance to see that, yeah, you got Iraq right, but you got Afghanistan wrong. You got Kosovo wrong. You got the Gaza Strip wrong. Among some other issues. So don't get it twisted. Bernie has a lot of great things, but don't compare, because why did it take Tulsi 16 quote unquote years to get ahead of Bernie Sanders in a lot of things, like understanding how consent is manufactured, like understanding we need the Securing America's Elections Act, like understanding that we are the ones who are funding terrorism, that we are funding Saudi Arabia. Notice Tulsi understands the realities of bigotry and hatred. She deals with it herself. But that's not what she's going after Trump on, because that's the lowest hanging fruit. Go after him on his policies. She's figured this out. And it didn't take her 40 or 50 years. And it didn't take her 40 or 50 years to make the right decision when everybody else was playing it safe. So the excuse, Bernie's been consistent for 40 years. Yes and no. His consistency as of the last 3 to 4 years has been lacking. But he's gotten the benefit of the doubt because the image of his consistency has been prevalent. But the actual consistency actually isn't there over the last 3 to 4. He spoke up on Assange after the mainstream told him it was okay. But he didn't before. Okay? Like, he called Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker his friends, and I really hate when people try to one up Bernie. Say, oh, Bernie has a one up on Tulsi. The only thing Bernie is beating her on right now is polling, money, and volunteers. All of that came from 2015 after the first debate, and he built up his little wave. Not a little wave, huge wave. But Tulsi hasn't sat in the first debate yet. She hasn't sat in the first debate yet. So that all that name recognition and I got the most money and volunteers and things like that, all of that, those excuses, what are you going to have left? If that's your reason for trying to one up, because I personally feel that objectively Tulsi is the best candidate, because I'm not concerned with just being the presiding officer of the nation, but being the commander in chief, and not being susceptible, having the intuition to be commander in chief. I'm a big proponent of that. Bernie does not have that intuition. I love Bernie to death, but he doesn't have that intuition. He's admitted it. He's weak on foreign relations. I can't have someone who admits to being weak on foreign relations ranked above the woman who has all of his domestic policies and then some, and is the only one who's good on foreign policy. I can't have him ranked there. Objectively. If you want to list a bunch of other non-political reasons, I guess you could say, non-policy reasons where you think Bernie should be the one people focus on, I guess that's cool. Like strategy-wise, if you think we can just debate that, and I would be willing to. But if you want to talk about objectively, as much as I love Bernie, I'm always, when it comes to major events, I have to guess which way he's going to go a lot of the times. Recently, though, not before. Recently. But with Tulsi, when someone said, oh, she's probably going to meet with this guy who works in the bank. Yeah, probably. That's what she would do. Yeah, sounds about right. And like I show you in that video, it's probably going to end up being the exact same conversation she has with me, with her family, with her friends, with, Democrats, with Republicans, with Joe Rogan, with Fiorella Impasta, with Kim Iverson, with Jimmy Dore. Same conversation over and over and over and over again. I'm sure she's tired of having it by now. So, if you want, like I said, if you want to debate strategy all day, if you want to debate, not even debate, talk about the fact that they are absolutely on the same team. If you even want to make the argument, a very legitimate one, by the way, that to have Bernie first so that Tulsi could then take over with the same administration and have 8 more years. That's even a legitimate argument. I am not quite sure if I'm okay with that at this moment, because I still question Bernie's ability to put the right people around him at times. And then listen to them when necessary. Especially when it comes to the women around him. I question that at times. But I still think that's a very... So strategy, cool. But if you want to talk about, in a vacuum, who's the best? Like, it's a difference between... If you're a basketball fan, it's the difference between Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. If you want to argue that the Warriors' strategy, their core strategy, what's best for them long term, requires Steph Curry to be able to shoot out of his damn mind more so than it requires Kevin Durant to be an overall better phenom, 7-foot phenom, then you can make that argument all day that Curry is the best for the system based on the current NBA and how you win games. Cool. But you ain't going to argue that a 7-foot 3-point shooting in the paint, dominating 2 blocks per game, pure scorer is better in a vacuum, or is not better in the vacuum than Steph Curry. Steph Curry is 6'2". He can shoot, but there's still things that can stand in his way. Kevin Durant is just a perfect specimen as far as basketball is concerned. And it's the same thing. Tulsi Gabbard is nearly a perfect specimen as far as her balance of knowledge and understanding of how the world works. I've seen her. You have to, somebody get a little nudge out the campaign. You remember whenever the first campaign rally, why you think that person got fired? Because Tulsi ain't playing it. The moment she thinks you're not on her team, she will make it known. And you will be gone. If she thinks you're not fighting on behalf of the people, you will be gone. Their biggest thing about hiring people right now is trust. Not only trust that you'll do what you can for the campaign, but trusting that you are in it for the right reasons. Call it too idealistic, but I don't blame her. These are the facts. Consistency is what's most important to me. And I'm gonna go, but Robin, I actually interviewed Mike Gravel, and they actually reached out to me yesterday. And matter of fact, I'll check right now. They haven't reached out to me again yet. They just said they needed a favor. They haven't reached out yet. So I don't know what's going on with that, but we'll find out. Once I find out, I'll let you know. But yeah, the Gravel campaign reached out to me. So once I figure out what that's about, I'll let you all know. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning into this long-winded live stream segment of Mi Casa Su Casa. And I'll be back very shortly. I'm going to go wet my whistle. But make sure you share this video. Tell them they can only watch like the first 30 or 40 minutes and it'll be fine. But if they want to stay, that's fine too. And with all that being said, people, more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.